Hey, Stephen Yanni here doing the Junkyard Crawl at Bernardston Auto Wrecking in Bernardston, Massachusetts. And this right here is a 1964 Plymouth Fury. If you're familiar with the 426 Hemi and its dynasty, which went 1964 through 71, it all started right here. Now in 1964, the Plymouth B-body and the Dodge B-body, the intermediate size, was in its third model year, 62, 63, 64, right here. Here's the thing, in 1962, the Dodge Dart and Plymouth Savoy Belvedere were funky looking cars. Really weird. Sorry to say, they didn't sell very well at all. But by 1964, Plymouth styling became more mainstream and conventional. And in 64, sales were up 36% over 63, which was less weird than 62, but still kind of weird. But the real story on this one here is what could have been under the hood. Now in this one here, we can see the remains of the original grille, which is in pretty decent condition. This again is an anodized aluminum lightweight grille. There it is right there. And there were some 64 Max Wedge cars that had optional aluminum fenders, hoods, and bumpers, and the race Hemi sedans also could be had with aluminum front ends. But again, they all get the aluminum grille. But this one here is just a regular steel-bodied car. Now the engine is gone here, and we can see here the remnants of what is probably a slant 6 K-frame, that extra tall tower on the driver's side, that right there, that's slant 6 stuff. So this was a 225 slant 6 powered Plymouth Fury, and that's okay. Up on the hood we can see the hood ornament here. And that bridge is still in pretty good shape. Look at that. That's savable. But again, there's no number. There's no 383. There's no 426 on that. But what could have happened here, we can see in Car Life magazine. This is June 64. And this is when Plymouth sweep Daytona 500. We're getting back that Hemi thing. Now, 64 was also the year for the GTO. And I like the GTO, but the reality was, well, the GTO was a whole different thing from a Hemi. Now here's the thing, this ad on the right-hand side here, this is Chrysler touting its own horn, and rightfully. The 426 Hemi, it says Daytona, Indianapolis, Riverside, Nashville, Charlotte, Harlingen, Phoenix, Jacksonville, Pomona, Atlanta, York, Islip, Dallas, Memphis, Darlington, Vineland, Bridgehampton, Atco, Detroit, Yellow River, Grand Bend, Concord, Augusta, Martinsville, San Gabriel, and Hillsborough. The race Hemi and the track Hemi were in full swing. It says here, those are the places where you will see Chrysler Corporation's new hemispherical engine in action, but not on Main Street, USA. That's the problem. See, in 1964, Richard Petty and a handful of other racers arrived at Daytona and kicked ass. Here's the deal. There's Richard Petty's number 43 Belvedere right there on the right. And it's a hardtop. We'll get more on that in a second. But these things kicked Ford and Pontiac butt. And here's the story right here. It says, Richard Petty, with one of Dad's cars, both launched themselves around the high-speed banks, 2.5 miles at more than 170 miles per hour. Ford men stood in awe-stricken silence. Ford and Mercury drivers could do no better than the high 160s. So the Hemi was absolutely coming on. There's Richard Petty right there before he won the race. But the Plymouths came in, the Hemis came in first, second, and third. And the upshot of that was NASCAR. Bill France says, hang on, this Hemi stuff, I can't buy one of those at my dealer. They're not legal for 65, you're out. So that began the NASCAR boycott of 65, and that led up to the 1966 street Hemis that you and I could buy. So Bill France said no when Richard Petty won too much in his 64 Hemi car, and that's why we got the street Hemi, which the success of that, frankly, led to a marketing value that led to the Generation 3 Hemi of 2005 and now. Kind of cool. But this is the middle. It started right here in 64. Now this one here, being a slant 6 car, you know, was a pretty docile vehicle, 145 gross horsepower. Let's look inside. We'll trade positions here, and I'll open the door, and we can see inside here. Here's where the push-button transmission would have been right here. The buttons, one of them I believe is still right here. This is the park cable right here that would basically allow you to put the thing in the park. This one had power steering and horn, the deluxe ring, the horn ring. And the Fury, of course, came with these full wheel covers. We see one of them right here. Not the Dodge Fratzog, kind of looks the same, but it's not. This is actually the Plymouth sailing ship, the Plymouth Rock, the Pilgrims Coming to America. I guess straight on, here's the sails and it's coming at you. That's maybe what that means. With that said, this is a two-door hardtop, and of the 115,771 Plymouth Furies built in '64, 26,303 were two doors. Now here's the thing, the Savoy and the Belvedere could be had as a sedan or the hardtop, but the Fury was strictly this hardtop body right here. You could not get a pillar coupe in Furyland in 1964. So again, this is the body style right here that Richard Petty campaigned at Daytona and kicked butt with. Kind of a cool car. So the Hemi Rebellion starts right here. Oh, and by the way, speaking of that 426 Hemi, this right here is Motor Trend, January of 1964. And do I hear a whining sound, kind of like a bad power steering pump?
Canceled? What do you mean we're canceled?
Anyway, here's January '64. This is before Richard Petty kicked butt at Daytona, but this is a story of the 426 Plymouth. Well, here's the thing. The Sport Fury was the new supermodel. You can get that in '62 and '3 as well, but the 426 Street Wedge was not to be confused with a 426 Hemi. And in fact, in this test here, they show you how the 365 horsepower Street Wedge on the bottom left, right there, that's a wedge similar to the 413 four-barrel. You know, not a bad little engine, 365 horse, but again, it was not a 426 Hemi. They're cousins, but they're not the same. You can see here the heavy-duty front suspension, the torsion bars, etc. So again, the two-door hardtop body right here. This is Sport Fury. This is the bucket seat version and the high zoot version of Fury. But in the trunk of this one, there we go. This is kind of cool. I've been around a while, and a while back, I was able to buy this Richard Petty autographed '64 Plymouth Belvedere. This is the Johan model that came out in the late '60s, early '70s, a second re-release of this, with the Hemi valve covers, the NASCAR interior, Goodyear Blue Streak tires, carburetor, single four-barrel, of course, on the NASCAR Hemi. They couldn't run dual quads. Of course, a little later on, Richard would kick butt even more in '70 with the Superbird. But here's something about this model. Here's the kit right here, the '64, and we can see on this one, the roof, all new for 1964, this hardtop roof with the thin base, wraparound rear window. Well, that was new for '64. '63, it was a more formal roof right there. This is a hardtop, not a pillar coupe, but again, the '63 and '4 Plymouth Furies were similar but not the same. Of course, the underpinnings were largely the same, but the rear window was a big thing. And in fact, this rear window, it was not wind tunnel design, but it didn't hurt Richard Petty and the aerodynamics of this car at high speed on the super speedways like Daytona. And we can see right here, here is the B-pillar and a sort of junkyard x-ray. Here is the support for the B-pillar right here, merging the roof to the rear wheelhouse right there. Nice little factory lightweight going on right here. And if you ever wondered, thanks to Mother Nature, what's inside of a shock absorber, well, there's the piston inside that goes up and down. And so basically that is the gas. That's the shock absorber right there. Thank you, Mother Nature. But inside this one, we can see the bench seat, which was standard stuff on Fury. You had to get the Sport Fury to get the bucket seat interior. And of course, bucket seats were a big deal in '64. It was sporty. Of course, Fury right there. First Fury, 1956, which was Plymouth's first muscle car, but a whole different story for another time. So that's the tale right here of 1964, this car right here, and the very beginnings of the 426 Hemi's legend on the racetrack and eventually on Main Street, USA. And I dare say the second generation Hemi of '64 through '71 led the way to Chrysler reinvesting in the Hemi nomenclature and even the Hemi engine. The third gen Hemi is a Hemi. Take one apart sometime, you'll see. Double rocker shafts, crossbow mains, transverse angles. It's a Hemi. It's a little smaller, but it has just as much power as the big ones did. It all started right here for the second gen Hemi. Now, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the Steve Mag's YouTube channel. Hit the like button, share us with your friends, and by all means, hit the bell so you're aware of the next video, which comes out tomorrow morning.